The Hebrides. Your ancestors in the Hebrides Islands.
I don't know anything about them. That was Tony Taylor. He was a major in the army, and he was a chartered accountant, and he worked at Windsor Castle. And he had an antenna, and he made out a program for all the family right back to the Hebrides. All he knew was that they came originally from the Hebrides and probably the Isle of Skye, and that was all he knew about the Scottish ancestry. He didn't know more. But there were people who came from Devon, and
also...
And you understand? My great-great-grandmother, she had a big family. She was called Elizabeth Hammond, and she married Peter Taylor from Bath. And she became Elizabeth Taylor. And they had a lot of children. And one of the sons went to Cardiff, and he became the father of Connie and her two sisters, and the brother who went to Australia, and they all did very well in Australia. He had 5 children, and they all did very well in Australia. The one who went into real estate, he became very rich. He lived in Sydney, and another one, a sister, went to London, and one of her sons became a famous KC, a King's Counsellor, un avocat très important à Londres. Et puis...
Non, mais ça je sais. But, okay, and you, in Jersey,
And my grandfather stayed in Jersey.
Yeah.
But his wife came from Exeter in England. That's my father's mother. So my grandfather had an English father and a Jersey mother, and my father had an English mother and a Jersey father, and I had a Jersey father and an English mother, and I was born in Jersey.
Yes. And
the one in real estate in Sydney, he came over to Jersey because one of my grandfather's sisters, who didn't marry, she had died, and she left an empty house. And the one from Sydney wanted my father to come and live in Jersey, but my father, he was working at Aldermaston at that time because he had trouble with his heart. He couldn't do his normal work. He went to work at Aldermaston, and he liked living in England. He didn't want to go back to Jersey. He was too old. So the one who came from Sydney, he had the house repaired and redecorated because he was in real estate. He knew how to do it. He sold the house for £20,000, and he went back to Sydney. But he would have liked my father to live there because he said someone in the family should go on living in Jersey.
Yes.
And I didn't want the house because we had a house in Strasbourg. And voila. But and I think one of that big family, one went to Canada, and well, I don't know what happened to them.
But
my grandfather had another sister, and she went to England, and she had a grocery shop in Taunton in England, but she didn't marry. But apparently she was very pretty, very attractive, and she always had her hair curled at the hairdresser's. And my father went to see her when he went to England. That's all I know. I don't know. I never met all those people, you understand, because of the war. And 6 of them were killed. They were in their house in London, down in the Sous-Sol, and a V2 dropped, and the explosion, it broke their lungs. And when they found them, they were sitting there, and they all looked as if they were asleep, but there was blood coming out of their mouths. It was because the lungs had been complètement écrasés by the explosion, the force of the explosion, the V2s. The V ones were terrible because you never knew where they were going to fall, and you stood in the street saying, I hope it won't fall here, and that's all you could do about it. But the V2s, they came in the night, you didn't even know where they were, and they fell, and they made a huge hole, and the explosion, the force of the explosion was terrible. It killed lots of people. And the family of 6 people that my father had visited before the war, they were all killed. And my mother's 2 sisters went to live in Ipswich, and Uncle Reg and Uncle Edie had Kathleen, and Uncle Eric and Auntie Lily had Jean. Those were my 2 cousins. They were the only 2 cousins I knew. But there were probably others all over the place, but I never met them, tu comprends. I only met my mother's, because my father's sister in Jersey, she didn't marry, she had no children.
Edith.
She was called Edith Adele, but everybody called her Girlie because she was the only girl in the family with 3 brothers. She had a father and 3 brothers, and she said that's why she didn't want to get married.
And Clyde, he had premonitions, right?
About his brother, he was about 15 at the time, and one morning he woke up crying, and everyone came and said, what's wrong? And he said, I saw Freddie, he was standing at the end of my bed, and he said, tell Mama I'm all right. Tell Mother I'm all right. And
Mother or Mommy?
Mother. I think they called her Ma. Boys called their mother Ma. Mother or Ma, I've forgotten now.
And then we learned...
And my father was in the same room, he didn't see anything, but he was only 11 years old at the time, and Clyde...
But Clyde had some sensory...
way like my grandmother, because when my grandmother went to the quayside to say goodbye to her son who was going to France to fight the Germans, she cried, and everyone said, what are you crying for? He's going to come back. And she said, no, he won't come back. And she really cried because she felt it was the last time she would see him. She was like that. She came from Devonshire. The people in Devonshire and Cornwall are supposed to be a bit like that, I was like that because I had that experience with my mother. I went to her funeral, and in the morning, after the funeral, very early in the morning, must even about 5 o'clock, it was raining outside, and I don't know, but I had the impression I was in a very wet place like a grotto, and it was cold, and I was cold. And suddenly there was a flash, a bright flash. It lasted perhaps 1 second. And I saw my mother as she was when she was young in a summer dress, and she said, I'm all right. And that was the end of it. It lasted perhaps 1-2 seconds, not more. And I woke up crying, and Papa était à côté de moi, and I said, I've just seen my mother. And I said, I'm cold, it's cold here. And he said, non, moi j'ai chaud. Hello, tu vois. J'ai eu quelque chose, voilà. I saw a flash, a brilliant light. And it was like in a grotto, but wet and cold. And she was standing there, young, as she was when she was young, summer dress, and she was smiling. She had, her hair was young, and her eyes, and a beautiful smile, and she said, I'm all right, and that, it was all over, perhaps 1-2 seconds, not more. But I'll never forget it, because it was really extraordinary. But I've never seen anything like that since. For Papa, I didn't see anything like that for Papa, and yet I was so close to him. And when I close my eyes, I can see him naturally. But I didn't have any sort of anything extraordinary.
Tu es fatiguée, maman?
Toujours à cause de quand il fait ce temps. Et je me couche tôt, hein, à 7 heures, je vais au lit. Hein. Et le matin, je me lève à 8 heures. Mais parce qu'on a changé l'heure, oh, ça me fatigue. Mais je dois me lever parce que je dois prendre mes médicaments tous les 4 heures, tu vois.
Et l'histoire du chien, you know the dog who...
Mais je t'ai dit ça tant de fois.
Oui, oui, je l'aime bien comme tu le dis. It's okay, you don't have to tell me.